Let me start this video with a question. Have you ever been walking through a retro game store and you see something that should be like 10 bucks, but it actually has this crazy price tag on it, maybe 20 times what it should actually cost? Well, number one, welcome to retro game collecting. But number two, there are really quite a few instances of otherwise common games sometimes having variants, ports, or even just a cardboard box that would make them incredibly expensive. Take, for example, a copy of Super Mario World on the SNES. This game came packed in with every console at launch. It sold over 20 million copies globally. It's far, far from rare, and pretty cheap too. But those pack-in copies did not come with a proper cardboard box. You just got the game and the manual. So in order to get the full complete in-box package, you had to go and double dip on a second copy at full price. Back in 1991, I'm sure a lot of people weren't so enthused to go and do that. So while a regular loose copy of Mario World will set you back under 20 bucks, a complete in-box original sells for nearly 700. And that's just one example of what I'm going to be talking about today. Otherwise common games that could be insanely expensive, including one game you would not expect to be the most valuable Xbox game across every single generation of Xbox. Whether it be a piece of packaging, a different form factor, an obscure port, or just a wildly limited release, let's dive right in. What is going on, everyone? My name is Evan, and I'll be completely honest, I just got inspired to make this video from just scrolling on the encyclopedia section in GameEye and seeing all of the crazy game prices. And before I get into this video, I want to ask you guys, have you ever seen a game in a game store that you've just been completely blown away by the price? I know I may have already asked you once in this video, but leave a comment down below and let's start a discussion. If you guys enjoy this video, I encourage you to hit that like button, and if you enjoy video game collecting and discussions like this, there's going to be plenty more on this channel, so hit subscribe to stick around. But with that, let's get to our first two entries on this list. The PS1 released in September of 1995 for the comparatively low price of $2.99. And since people were saving so much money by not buying a Sega Saturn, they had a little extra pocket change to go pick up some games. At the PS1's launch, the games looked like this. You probably already know this, but early PS1 games were packaged in these cardboard or sometimes plastic long boxes. They were pretty similar in shape and size to Sega CD and Saturn boxes. Definitely a sign of the times, if you know. Anyway, this design didn't last a long time. You probably know this because most PS1 games are CD jewel cases. Just over 100 games were released as long boxes, with two of them being Mortal Kombat 3 and Doom, releasing in October and November of 1995, respectively. Both of these games sold well. The PlayStation was flying off the shelves, and these were two huge names. Mortal Kombat 3 was hailed as a nearly arcade-perfect port, but it still suffered from being Mortal Kombat 3. Doom was one of the most faithful ports of its day, a game that was notoriously hard to port for a long time, but it included levels from Doom 1's Jaguar build and Doom 2, although some of the bigger levels and enemies like the Archvile were left out of the Doom 2 sections. Overall, it's a great port and still worth going back to for some weird things like different music and colored lighting, which definitely make it stand out from the crowd. As for buying these games today, the long box versions are relatively common. There's a lot of listings on eBay, and while just in general, the long box PS1 games do hold decent value, it's never too hard to find these ones. Mortal Kombat 3 goes for around 50 bucks, and Doom is slightly higher at $70-ish. However, it appears that right as Sony was transitioning the PlayStation packaging from long boxes to jewel cases, a lot of these long box games got very small print runs, black label, jewel case versions of these games. In the case of Mortal Kombat 3 and Doom, these jewel case copies go for crazy money. Black label jewel case Doom, not the greatest hits release, commands almost $600 on secondhand sites like eBay. And Mortal Kombat 3, that's near $1,000, over $900. All of that for a game with no Scorpion and divorced dad Sub-Zero. Yeah, I have my thoughts on MK3, but that's besides the point. Anyway, these remain very cool, yet very unbelievably expensive collector's items for the PS1. It's worth noting that this also happened with some other long box games like Rayman and Ridge Racer, but Doom and Mortal Kombat remain the most outrageous examples. And if you're ever out looking at your thrift stores, definitely check the CD sections because you might get lucky and find these mixed in. One thing I know about most game collectors, including myself, is that we generally don't like greatest hits or player's choice re-releases. I guess it's always been this secret industry-wide agreement to ensure that these releases look as ugly as humanly possible, and no amount of nostalgia is going to make me love the yellow spines on a player's choice GameCube game. Sorry, I just can't do it. I can't do it. But still, there does exist a dedicated subset of collectors who love these kinds of releases, some even pursuing full sets for whatever console of their choosing. Which brings us to the Microsoft Xbox. Honestly, the original Xbox is a fantastic console to collect for. It's the most powerful 6th gen machine with a fantastic exclusive lineup, and multi-platform games generally run and look better on Xbox, and they're cheaper too. And just like Nintendo and Sony, Microsoft also had their own line of discount re-releases, which they called Platinum Hits. They released in these hideous silver cases, and generally speaking, most of these Platinum Hits re-releases are cheaper than their Black Label counterparts. This is usually how this works. But then there's SpongeBob SquarePants Lights Camera Pants. This game came out in October of 2005 for pretty much every console under the sun, and it was 1 month before the 360 launch, so this was really late into the original Xbox's life, so late that production had already been stopped, and wouldn't you know it, the Black Label copy is incredibly cheap. If you want to have a party game night with SpongeBob and company, it will only run you $15 or so, not even for a regular copy. But the weird part about SpongeBob is despite the game coming out, again, days before the 360's launch, somehow this game managed to get a Platinum Hits release. Excuse me, Platinum Family Hits release. I really don't know how this came to be. I couldn't find an exact timing of when this game hit shelves, but we can do a little bit of assuming. If you can imagine, a decent amount of time had to pass before they decided to give this game that reprint. It was likely very late into the Xbox's life and a decent way into the life of the 360. It was backwards compatible for the 360. I think that's why this game got another run. I think they wanted to get this game back out there. It was compatible with the 360. And so that's why we saw this Platinum Family Hits release. So while that regular copy will run you under $15, this Platinum Hits version is almost $70. It's not as crazy as the PlayStation games I just talked about, but 7 times the cost of the Black Label is not insignificant. However, that's peanuts compared to another Platinum Hits release and easily the most expensive crown jewel on the original Xbox, the Platinum Hits version of NBA Ballers. That's right, a sports game demanding an astonishing $750 for a complete copy. Just like SpongeBob, this reprint was very late into the Xbox's life, and the Black Label copy also goes for less than $10. It's crazy to me how the retro gaming market shakes out sometimes, and there's no better example than these two outliers for an otherwise really cheap console to collect for. But if you can believe it, NBA Ballers is not the most valuable Xbox game I mentioned at the beginning of this video. I am getting there in just a second, but first, we need to jump a generation and go here. Sonic X Shadow Generations for the PS4. You may not have known this got a physical release here in the States, and that's kind of because it didn't. Sonic X Shadow hit store shelves in October of 2024 for the PS5, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch. It's an excellent update of an already fantastic game, and the new content is well worth another run through. The Shadow Generation section is short, but it's very, very good. Some of the best levels in the entire series, if you ask me. And while there was a PS4 port released, it only ever got retail physical releases in Europe and Japan. It was digital only here in the States. That is, unless you keep tabs on Limited Run games. Limited Run partnered with Sega to release the Sonic X Shadow Collector's Edition, featuring this what was supposed to be a rather nice statue of Sonic and Shadow standing on top of a Dreamcast. These were supposed to ship in November of 2025. People ended up getting them in late December, and the statue looks like this. I really thought we'd get out of 2025 without another collector's edition statue controversy, but Cross-Eyed Shadow has now joined the ranks with Cross-Eyed Snake. And this collector's edition came in at a whopping $250, and you only had a month and a half to pre-order it. However, what's most important here is that this collector's edition was the only way to obtain an ESRB copy of the PS4 version of Sonic X Shadow. The only way. And to LRG's credit, they did make that known, and for those who bought this collector's edition, they shipped out the game well before all the other stuff, so these have been floating around for a while now. And let me tell you, these PS4 copies are not cheap. Recently sold eBay listings for ESRB PS4 copies have this going for about $250. And given that I can only find a single listing for one up right now, it's safe to assume these are insanely limited. There's only a handful of them actually out in the wild. Otherwise, you could get this game on PS5, Xbox, Switch, or Switch 2 for under $30. Hell, you can go to the store new and buy it for under $30, or you can get a region-free import copy of the PS4 version for around that price as well. But if you want that ESRB, if you want that US Sonic X Shadow Generations, you gotta be there. You had to be there in the right place at the right time. And that's exactly what happened with our next game, the most expensive title across all generations of Xbox, and a pretty damn pricey PS4 game too. Aiden Chronicles 100 Heroes. At least I think that's how you say it. A spiritual successor to the Suikoden series, Aiden Chronicles 100 Heroes was originally announced back in 2020 and crowdfunded through Kickstarter. That Kickstarter campaign did exceptionally well, raising $4.5 million, $4 million more than the original goal. However, the blight of 2020 and numerous other factors led to a series of delays for developer Rabbit and Bear Studios. 100 Heroes kept getting pushed back, and at one point, they even released a prequel game to hold people over. That was handled by a different studio. Eventually, all ended up well. The game released in April of 2024 and reviewed pretty well. So what makes this game the most valuable Xbox game ever? It's kind of similar to what happened with Sonic X Shadow. When 100 Heroes hit store shelves in 2024, the only retail copies that you could grab were for PS5 and Switch. A bit odd considering the prequel, Eidon Chronicle Rising, hit for the PS4, PS5, Xbox, and Switch. But that was in 2022, different time. However, there does exist physical PS4 and Xbox copies of 100 Heroes, and they only went out to people who kickstarted the game. Think about this time frame here. You had 1 month. It was a 1 month period, 4 years before the game released. You needed to be locked in on a PS4 or an Xbox copy 4 years in advance. So 100 Heroes carries a price charting value of $30 to $40 on PS5 and Switch. The Xbox copy is, and I mean this, extraordinarily rare. It is the most expensive Xbox branded game I could find. And at the time of this recording, there is not a single copy listed on eBay, with the latest selling earlier this month for $1,150. That price is above every other Xbox game, including special editions and the entire Steel Battalion brand new sealed. And the PS4 copy is probably just as rare. There's only one listing on eBay right now for almost $1,300, but price charting has it lower than that, and previous sold listings show it going for closer to $500. A decent ways below Xbox sold listings, so that's why I'm putting the Xbox copy slightly higher in regard for rarity. So this is it, the most valuable game ever released under the Xbox branding, and the true definition of an otherwise common game with an outrageously expensive port. Maybe time will tell with this one. It's possible there's more copies just laying around yet to be sold, but for right now, we don't know that. As it stands, 100 Heroes on PS4 and Xbox is an incredibly niche, yet fascinating collector's piece, only to be appreciated by the true connoisseur of obscure and unnecessary and limited releases. Unless you're going for a full Xbox Series or PS4 set, at that point, just buy a PS5 and a copy of the PS5 version, or a Switch and a Switch version. You know, you get what I'm saying. It's crazy. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this video. Let me know, guys, did you learn anything in this video? Have you ever seen any of these games? Do you own any of these games? And did you learn anything? Did you not know that any of these were kind of super rare or expensive? Because before I found the inspiration for this video, which was Eidon Chronicles, I had no idea. And so I started deep diving into this very obscure and interesting topic. If you guys like game collecting discussions and things like this, just more content in general, kind of in this style, hit that subscribe button. And if you made it to this point, I appreciate it if you dropped a like. It does go a long way. But until the next one, everyone, my name is Evan. Have a good one.